October 26th, 1979. We're in Seoul, a safe house near the Blue House presidential compound, to be exact. President Park Chung-hee is having dinner. He's been South Korea's president for nearly 18 years. Tonight, he is relaxing with trusted aides and two young women. What he doesn't know is that in less than an hour, he'll be dead. Shot by his own intelligence chief. Kim Jae-gyu, director of the Korean Central Intelligence Agency. The official story will call it an impulsive act, a moment of passion, or a personal vendetta. But the assassination will trigger something far worse. Within weeks, a secret society of military officers will seize control of South Korea. They'll stage a coup, arrest their rivals, extend martial law across the entire country. And when citizens rise up to protest, the military will open fire. Hundreds will die in the streets of Gwangju. Democracy in South Korea will be crushed for another 8 years. This is the story of the assassination that broke Korea and the secret military faction that took over. Let's go back to where this begins. 1950 to 1953, the Korean War. The war destroys the peninsula. Millions are dead, cities are flattened, and when it finally ends, South Korea is left in ruins. Authoritarian regimes emerge as the country rebuilds. Leaders proclaim martial law whenever they want. Combat soldiers patrol the streets, tanks block the intersections, all to prevent anti-government protests. One of these leaders is Park Chung-hee. In May 1961, Park leads several thousand troops into Seoul in the early morning hours. South Korea's first successful coup. He seizes power and holds it for nearly 20 years. Park runs the country with an iron fist. He uses martial law to crush protests and jail critics. The Korean Central Intelligence Agency is created in 1961. Officially, it's meant to coordinate intelligence activities. In reality, it becomes Park's personal weapon. The KCIA wiretaps phones, arrests dissidents, tortures suspects, all without court orders. They bribe politicians, blackmail opponents, threaten anyone who challenges the regime. The goal is simple: keep all opposition weak enough so that Park stays in power. But in 1971, Park narrowly loses. His opponent, Kim Dae-jung, runs a strong campaign. Park spends 10% of the entire national budget on his own election and barely even wins. Park decides he's not taking that risk again. He establishes a new constitution. Direct presidential elections are replaced with indirect voting through delegates. 1/3 of the National Assembly seats go to the president. Presidential term limits are abolished. The president gains the power to suspend the constitution, to issue emergency decrees, to appoint all judges, to dismiss the National Assembly. When people criticize this, Park issues emergency decrees making any opposition or denial of the constitution punishable by 15 years in prison. Park tightens his control over South Korea. If you are enjoying the video so far, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That would mean a lot. You can also check out my other recent video about the Chilean military coup by clicking here. Now let's continue, shall we? But opposition doesn't stop. In the 1978 legislative election, Park's Democratic Republican Party maintains a majority, but the opposition, New Democratic Party, wins the popular vote. Park moves to neutralize them. In September 1979, Courts nullified the chairmanship of Kim Young-sam, the NDP leader. In October, Park's party expels Kim from the National Assembly in a secret session. NDP lawmakers resign in protest. The Carter administration recalls the US ambassador from Seoul in protest. Then, in October 1979, protests erupt. They start in Busan, Kim Young-sam's hometown. Students and citizens flood to the streets. They burn 30 police stations over several days. The protests spread to nearby cities. People are demanding a repeal of Park's authoritarian constitution. KCIA director Kim Jae-gyu investigates. He reports back to Park that these aren't isolated incidents. This is a popular uprising. He warns that the demonstrations will spread to Seoul. Then comes Park's response, according to Kim's personal account. Cha Ji-chul, his chief bodyguard, brings up the killing fields in Cambodia. He says that 1 or 2 million Koreans being killed wouldn't make much difference. Park agrees. He says he'll order security forces to fire on demonstrators if the situation worsens. Director Kim is horrified, but there's something else going on here, something personal. Kim Jae-gyu and Cha Ji-chul hate each other. Cha has been encroaching on KCIA territory. Publicly humiliating Kim, Cha is almost universally disliked but feared, and he's become Park's most trusted advisor. The rivalry reaches a breaking point in late 1979. They clash over how to handle the growing protests. During the NDP chairmanship election, the KCIA backs a moderate candidate to block hardliner Kim Young-sam. But Cha disrupts their plan. However, Kim Young-sam wins anyway. Cha blames the KCIA publicly, enraging Director Kim. When Kim Young-sam urges the US to withdraw support for Park's regime, Cha calls for his expulsion from the National Assembly. This alarms Director Kim even further. The tension is unbearable. Something has to give. October 26, 1979. Park and his entourage attend ribbon-cutting ceremonies. A dam in Sapgyo, a TV station in Dangjin. Director Kim is expected to accompany him since the TV station is under KCIA jurisdiction. But Cha blocks him from riding in Park's helicopter. Kim excuses himself from the trip. After the ceremonies, Park orders the KCIA to prepare for a banquet. Park holds these dinners about 10 times a month. Tonight's will be at a safe house near the presidential compound. Attending are Park, Kim Jae-gyu, Cha Ji-chul, Chief Secretary Kim Gye-won, and 2 young women. Before dinner, Director Kim makes arrangements. He calls Army Chief of Staff Jong Sung-hwa and invites him to dine with the KCIA Deputy Director in a nearby building in the same compound. Kim tells his Chief Secretary that he's going to get rid of Cha. During dinner, the conversation turns to the protests in Busan. Park and Cha take hardline approaches. They argue for arresting Kim Young-sam. Director Kim pushes back. Kim Young-sam has already been punished by being expelled from the National Assembly. Then Kim excuses himself. He leaves the room briefly to arm himself. He instructs his closest subordinates to be ready. When they hear gunfire, eliminate the guards. His men take up positions around the safe house. 7:40 p.m. Kim tells the chief secretary to look after Park. Then he shouts, "How can you have such a miserable worm as your advisor?" He shoots Cha. Then he turns his pistol on Pak and fires twice into his chest. The weapon jams. The women rush to help the wounded president. Kim retrieves a revolver. He returns to the room. After a brief struggle, he shoots Cha again in the bathroom, fatally wounding him in the abdomen. Outside, Kim's KCIA guards open fire on Pak's security detail. 3 of them are killed. A presidential chauffeur also dies in the attack. Kim walks over to Pak, who's lying on the floor. He shoots him once behind the right ear. The president is dead. After a bungled attempt to slip away, including briefly hailing a taxi, Kim is apprehended by the military in the early hours of October 27th. His failure to kill the 3 witnesses convinces the investigators that the murders were an act of passion rather than a planned coup. Kim Jae-gyu is hanged on May 24th, 1980, along with 4 others. However, this event would only set the stage for what was coming. Pak's assassination throws South Korea into chaos. Prime Minister Choi Kyo-ha becomes acting president and is formally elected in December 1979. The country is placed under martial law, overseen by General Jong Sung-hwa, the Army Chief of Staff. Jong appoints Major General Chun Doo-hwan, commander of the Military Security Command, to investigate Pak's assassination. This will prove to be a fatal mistake. Chun Doo-hwan is ambitious and is not working alone. He's the leader of Hanahe, the Group of One, a secret society of military officers. Hanahe traces its origins to 1958, when it was formed as the Seven Star Society. Initially formed by graduates of the 11th class of the Korea Military Academy in 1955, Hanahe recruited a handful of members from each subsequent class. They're loyal to each other, more than to the chain of command or even the constitution. And now, with Pak dead and the country in turmoil, they see their chance. Jun is a rival to General Jong. The Military Security Command was created as a hedge against potential military coups under Pak. Now Jong moves to sideline Hanahe. He plans to assign Jun and other Hanahe members to less important posts. Fearing their careers are at stake, Hanahe strikes first. Jun has the job of investigating Pak's death. He uses his position to purge supporters of General Jong, a coup by one military faction against another. The official president in South Korea is Choi Kyo-ha, but Jun is about to have the real power. December 12, 1979, evening. Jun, acting without the authorization from President Choi, orders the arrest of General Jong on allegations of involvement in Pak's assassination. The Minister of National Defense, Roh Jae-hyun, flees to seek protection at the US Embassy. He's advised to return and reluctantly listens. When he does, he refuses to arrest Jun. Instead, he arrests Jong to appease the rebels. Then he withdraws from politics. After Jong's capture, an army regiment invades downtown Seoul to support Jun's forces. Clashes break out across the city. 2 of Jong's allies are arrested. 1 is killed in a gunfight. By the next morning, the Ministry of Defense and Army headquarters are occupied by rebel troops. Jun and Hanahe control the Korean ground forces. Jun becomes the de facto commander-in-chief. President Choi is now a figurehead. General Jong is sentenced to 10 years in a court-martial on March 13, 1980. In January, the South Korean military undergoes massive reorganization. Generals who criticized the mutiny are forced out or transferred. The coup marks the beginning of the end of the Fourth Republic of Korea. But Chun isn't finished. May 17th, 1980. Chun forces the cabinet to extend martial law to the entire nation. It had previously not applied to Jae-gyu province. Universities are closed, political activities are banned, the press is further curtailed. Troops are dispatched across the country. The KCIA raids a national conference of student union leaders, and about 2,700 people are arrested, including 26 politicians. The following day, the citizens of Gwangju rise up. Gwangju is in the southwest, a city with a history of resistance. People flood the streets demanding democracy, demanding an end to martial law. The military moves in. Citizens take up arms to defend themselves. For 9 days, Gwangju fights back, but on May 27th, the army launches a final assault. The uprising is crushed. At least 200 people are killed, though the real number is likely much higher. The massacre will haunt South Korea for decades. June 1980. Chun orders the National Assembly dissolved. All political parties are banned. In mid-August, President Choi is forced to resign. Chun takes power officially in September 1980. Less than 2 months after Park Chung-hee's death, Major General Chun Doo-hwan had led tanks and troops into Seoul in December 1979, South Korea's second successful coup. The next year, he orchestrated the brutal crackdown in Gwangju. In April 1980, Chun becomes the head of the KCIA. In May, the military drops all pretense of civilian rule and brutally suppresses opposition in Gwangju. Chun will rule South Korea with an iron grip for the next 8 years, but the memory of Gwangju doesn't fade. In the summer of 1987, massive street protests force Chun's government to accept direct presidential elections. His army ally, Roh Tae-woo, who joined Chun's 1979 coup, wins the election thanks to divided votes among liberal opposition candidates. With the 1987 constitutional reforms and Roh Tae-woo's election, finalized with his inauguration in February 1988, South Korea becomes a democracy, the Sixth Republic. The assassination of Park Chung-hee on October 26, 1979, looked like it could be the end of dictatorship in South Korea. Instead, it took 8 more years and the courage of millions of ordinary citizens to finally bring democracy to South Korea. Thanks for watching this video about the coup that overthrew South Korea's president. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I also have some other videos you can check out here, or you can go into my channel and check them out there. See you in the next video.